all and be together here on Friday night. So thank you everyone for coming at the end of what's felt like a much colder week than it is in reality, but I feel like winter is here. We'll begin our service in song, acknowledging the joy of community and togetherness with Hine Matov on page 128. Hine Matov u'manayim Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim Shevet achim gam yachad. Rachel, can I invite you up to read I Begin with a Prayer on page 126? 126.
I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I could sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illuminate all of us, and to bring that vision to life. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Now I'd like to invite up CJ Kingsley, who's hosting tonight's Oneg Shabbat in memory of her father. CJ, before you light candles and say Kiddush, I wanted to invite you to share a little bit about your father. Tell us a little about him.
My father was a constant jokester. He was very shy. He hid behind a camera most of the time. But one of my favorite stories to tell people is about, he was born in 1908 in Lower East Side of Manhattan. And the kids in the neighborhood got jobs from the political bosses that had their own little storefronts that used to do things like send a translator to school with an interpreter with my grandmother so that she could find out how her kids were doing in school. But they also helped at the polls. And he, as a little boy, in the year that there was a vote for whether you could have alcohol, he was sent to the polls to stand next to the polling booth and answer the question for the little old Jewish men of where do I put my X for beer?
That's amazing. So is this week his yard site?
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Okay.
We always do after.
Okay, great.
And the
Candle lighting.
Is on
Good question. It's on 120, page 120.
Not that I don't know it by heart, but when you do it in front of an audience, it's
Oh, yeah.
more difficult.
Need a hand?
I'll see.
Oh, there we go.
If you all will please join me when I get started.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen. And I think we do Kiddush too. If CJ, do you want to do Kiddush? Okay. All right. You know what? We'll do Kiddush. We'll do Kiddush with the oneg. How about that? All right. We're playing jazz tonight. All right. Well, thank you, CJ, and thank you for hosting the oneg. Now let's turn to page 138 to welcome the Sabbath bride. We will sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9, rising in body or spirit for the final verse and facing the door to welcome Shabbat officially into the room with us. So that's page 138. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki hi mekor habracha, Merosh mikadem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, Kiva orech kumi uri shir daberi, Kivod Adonai alaich nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzohola, Toch emunei am segula, Boi kala. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Now that the Sabbath bride, or the Sabbath spirit, has officially joined us, we'll turn to the Chatzi Kaddish to recall the greatness of God. Please join me on page 144. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayedecho Beit Yisrael, bagala uv'izman kariv v'meru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam ulal me'amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach, V'et pa'ar, v'et romam, v'et naseh, v'et hadar, v'et halev, v'et halal, shemei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma, v'meru, amen. Josh, will you come join me on the bima to read a short and beautiful passage beginning entrances on page 145? I have it right here. Thank you.
Okay, the announcements tonight. Oh, that's the wrong one.
Stealing her job.
Entrances to holiness are everywhere. The possibility of ascent is all the time. Even at unlikely times and through unlikely places, there is no place on earth without the presence.
Thank you, Josh. We'll continue with our call to prayer, the Baruch Hu, on page 146. Please rise in body or spirit. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. Praise Adonai, to whom praise is due forever. Praised be Adonai, to whom praise is due now and forever. In appreciation of God's love, let's join together with Ahavat Olam on page 150. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadita, Otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shachbenu, uvkumenu nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, uv'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla, negei yomam v'layla. V'ahavatcha al tasir, mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael, Ohev Amo Yisrael. I'd like to invite Michael up to the bima to read in English on page 151, as you taught. Right here. There you go.
As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me. Did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into your mystery.
Thank you, Michael. Please rise in body or spirit as we celebrate the unity and oneness of God with Shema on page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Blessed is God's glorious majesty forever and ever. Please be seated. To remind ourselves of the commandment to love our God and to wear that love proudly, let's join together with Via Hafta on page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom alevavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uvshochpecha uvkumecha al yadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkeru vasitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim lehiot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Adonai Elohechem emet. Thank you. In my extremely nascent service leading career, I've taken to choosing one of the core prayers that we usually sing together and reading it in English instead. One of my favorite parts of services is communal song, so the intent is not to limit that, but I think it can be a powerful reminder of the words that we sang week in, week out, to be reminded of what they mean in the language we speak day in, day out. So tonight, I'd like us to read Mi Chamocha in English instead of singing it in Hebrew. And I'd like to invite up Allison, if you're comfortable, reading for us on page 158. Thank you, Allison.
Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Your children witnessed your sovereignty, the sea splitting before Moses and Miriam. This is our God, they cried. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel.
Thank you, Allison. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more, the song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. To honor that peace and the pause that Shabbat offers us, let's continue with Vishamru on page 162. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lasot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, o b'nei Yisrael, oti leolam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Please rise in body or spirit for the Amidah on page 164 and face the ark. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot B'Imahot, U'Mevi Gola Livnei V'Nehem, L'man Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin, Baruch atah Adonai, Magin Abraham V'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol, Atah Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, Mechalkel chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei holim, U'matir asurim, U'mekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha ba'agevurot, U'idom melach, Melech memit, U'mechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, Hachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yihallelu chasela. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh. Please take a moment. Please feel free to be seated. And please take a moment for individual prayer or contemplation. If you have trouble finding words on your own, try reading what's on the page and see if it feels right. And we'll regroup with Osei Shalom on page 180. Osei Shalom bimromav, Hu yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace for us, for all Israel, and all who inhabit the earth. Amen. There are those in our lives who suffer from illness of body or illness of spirit. Mishaberach, the prayer of healing and hope, petitions God to grant healing to those in need. Tonight, we are holding on our hearts Delbert Poole, Joyce Salinas, Marvin Lazarus, Svetlana Lozovic, Doug McCracken, Harma Wilcox, Fartak Chang, Ellie Forshaw, David Forshaw, Elaine Kaufman, Steve Corman, Linda Leichman Caldron, Donna Kennedy, Kevin Tam, Samantha Shalouche, Charlie Lawfer, Jason Brooks, Jean-Pierre Shalouche, Stacy Roberts Orr, Sol Saad, Harriet Lavietes, Donna Garfinkel, and Tom Miller, and any other names anyone would like to share. I'll start around the room this way. Eric?
Marlene.
Tricia Victoria Langley.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Misha Berach can be found on page 371. We're going to do the version we always do that's in the middle of the page there. Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. This week, we read Parshat Vayera, which is full of family stories. Complicated ones, to be sure, those we all learned about in Hebrew school, like Sarah's miraculous conception of Isaac and her advanced age, and the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, God's test of a father. Parshat Vayera also contains the quintessential biblical story of weighing good against evil, as Abraham engages in earnest, heartbreaking negotiation with God to spare Sodom and Gomorrah from destruction if he can find 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, or even 10 righteous souls. The stories about women in Vayera are stories of obedient wives and focused mothers, spurned concubines and deviant tricksters. Let's take Sarah, our foremother, in this parsha. She seemingly accepts her husband's infidelity, but is jealous of Hagar, Abraham's concubine, whom she cruelly turns out with her son Ishmael into the wilderness. Later, we hear nothing from Sarah's perspective, zilch, when she returns to her marriage after being taken into a king's harem, not once, but twice. Water under the bridge, perhaps, best not to dwell on it. Far more distressing are the stories in Vayera of Lot's daughters, who notably are never named, but are referred to only as Lot's daughters. When an angry mob of townspeople of Sodom beg Lot to turn over two strangers visiting his home, he opts for hospitality, I suppose, declining to turn over his house guests to the angry horde and offering his daughters instead. Lot cries, "Look, I have 2 daughters who have never been intimate with a man. Let me bring them out for you and do to them as you please. But do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof." Later in Vayera, these same daughters get their father drunk in order to lie with him and become pregnant. So preoccupied are they by their desire to perpetuate the human race. It is a lot to get one's head around. And more than the specifics, I can't get over the tropes in these stories. These stories we grow up hearing where women are largely an afterthought. They are objects in men's hands. They birth the next generation of male leaders. They ask for nothing for themselves, endure violence and grave injustice, and seemingly silently accept their lot. I can't stop thinking about how the stories we tell about women and their place in our world really matters. And in fact, it can have real-world consequences. I've been thinking so much about the stories we hear and that we tell in light of current events. It has been a difficult 10 days for many of us, and while I hesitate to bring politics into our sanctuary, it feels like the elephant in the room, and at least the elephant in my mind since about 5 p.m. last Tuesday when the early vote count started to come in from the East Coast. Talking about anything else this evening feels like it would be dodging the subject, so forgive me. I'm sure I surprised no one in this room when I confessed to being a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. I was bitten by the politics bug pretty young. As a senior in high school, I got a paying job on a congressional campaign in my hometown of Scotch Plains, New Jersey, and never looked back, drawn in by a heady sense of working towards a brighter future and a healthy dose of Aaron Sorkin's dialogue on the West Wing. Intellectually, I understood that the 2024 presidential race would be a close one. Every poll and pundit said so, but emotionally, I was sure that the choice was clear. A talented, lifelong public servant versus the other guy. Sure, Knight Silver might say it's a coin flip, but my heart of hearts didn't think so. And yet, on January 20th, a new president will be inaugurated, and Vice President Harris will, like so many women in much less consequential situations, put a smile on her face and clap graciously while the other guy gets the job. I'm not here to prognosticate on the politics of this moment any further, but while there were certainly other forces at play, it's hard to ignore the feeling that a majority of my fellow Americans just didn't see a president when they listened to Vice President Harris tell her life story or the story of how she would serve the American people. The VP smiles a lot. She wears pearl necklaces. She calls herself Mamala and Auntie. She didn't center her gender in her campaign, but she is who she is. In 2019, when I was pregnant with my twin boys, I read an essay by Ruth Whipman that blew my mind. Her thesis was that women and girls of my generation or thereabouts, millennials plus or minus a generation, grew up awash in girl boss propaganda. Countless books and media told girls and young women to pursue careers in STEM, stop apologizing, and be anything we wanted to be. You go, girl. But Whitman posits that we limited our audience. We didn't do the cultural education of boys and young men, telling them the same thing about their female peers. There are still lines around what women can and cannot be, even if we can't see them. And those lines are informed by the stories we tell. We need to tell different stories about women, stories of cool-headed, big-smiling aunties in charge, stories of female intellect, initiative, and leadership, and we all need to hear them, not just little girls. And the thing is, our Torah does offer that to us too. On Purim, we tell the story of brave Queen Esther, who risked her life to stand up to King Ahasuerus. Her Jewish community owed its deliverance to Esther's courage, honesty, and powers of persuasion. And that deliverance is something we celebrate and honor each year on Purim with a joyful festival. In the book of Exodus, we read about Miriam, whose strategic thinking reunited Moses with his mother, preserving his connection to his family and to his people. As an infant, their mother chose to give him up, floating him away in a basket in the Nile River, rather than give in to Pharaoh's order that all male Jewish children be killed. Thanks to Miriam's quick thinking and problem solving, her brother Moses is taken into safety by Pharaoh's daughter, and their mother is hired to be his nurse. We channel Miriam's initiative and her joy when we sing Mi Chamocha. For the book of Exodus tells us that Miriam is the one who led the Israelites in joyful song and dance after they crossed the Red Sea. I'm not suggesting that we discard Parshat Vayera for the tropes it presents about our foremothers. There is so much richness in this parsha. Who could ever consider how much ink has been spilled on the meaning of the Akedah? Did Abraham pass the test or fail it? On Abraham's negotiations on behalf of the doomed of Sodom and Gomorrah, why did he stop at 10 and not negotiate God down to 1? Or the divergent pathways of Abraham's 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael. There is so much wisdom here, and I'm not suggesting otherwise. But I am asking all of us to cast a critical eye on these stories told this way about these women. Sarah, our foremother, Hagar, Lot's daughters, and others. Think about what we are told and not told. Think about whose perspectives we hear and whose we don't, and how that may inform the worldview that we inhabit. And think about stories we need to tell to create the sort of textured image of women in all of us in our full humanity. Shabbat Shalom. And now I'd like to invite our Board of Directors rep, Kimberly McVicker, to the bima to make the announcements.
You're a tough act to follow. What a joy. I mean, I know that's not on my little cheat sheet here, but what a joy to watch you lead these services.
Thank you.
Thank you. You are awesome. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I actually had to get out of my pajamas to come here, so I feel you. I feel you. Okay, so let me put these on. All right, so perfect. The top thing is that Sunday is our annual holiday fest, and it is on Sunday from 10 to 4. It's here in the social hall. Some vendors outside and also in the community center. There's over 50 vendors, including Skip, Shelly, so be sure to check out their booths. If you're on Facebook, we're starting to do a hashtag vendor spotlight. So check them out because I'm nerding out seeing the stuff that's coming. I mean, there's some very cool stuff. So please come and invite your friends. There's some flyers. Go tell your neighbors. And then also on Sunday at 6 is the second session of the Jewish Community Online Support Group, and it's moderated by Sarah Fisher Sanford. And that's on Zoom. There's the Zoom link is in the TI Times. The book club is reading Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange, and that discussion is Monday, November 18th at 7, also on Zoom. And of course, the big moment for all of us is that next Friday and Saturday is Naomi Finch's bat mitzvah. So Friday night, come to that. That's like her warm up. And then the big day is on Saturday. And then for Thanksgiving, we're not having services on that Friday. So that is it. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Kimberly. Who leads the book club or organizes it?
Allison.
Oh.
Is it another thing of Allison that Allison?
It just doesn't even fit on your name tag. That's why I don't know.
Adjust the name tag.
I'm not the leader, but I send out the notices.
Okay.
We all are leaders, each person selects a book and discussion on that book.
Thank you, Eric, for the technology.
Yeah.
Thank you, CJ. I forgot to say that. Thank you, Eric. And Skip is the greeter.
I think it's Jerry. They're tag teaming.
Did Skip take your chair? Okay.
All right, well, in a moment, we will continue with Elenu on page 586. Is anyone here in mourning or observing a yard site, CJ or others? You're welcome to come up to the bima and open the ark. Everyone else, once the ark is open, please rise and face the ark.
I got mine, you got yours?
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'ateit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goralenu kechol hamonam, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Please be seated. As we prepare to recite Kadisha Tome in memory of the dead, we're going to read together on page 594, It is a Fearful Thing. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch, a fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be and to lose, a thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We extend our condolences to the families in our congregation who are grieving the passing of these loved ones during the last 12 months. Tonight, we're observing Kaddish for Lee Soskin, Henry Saunders McCoy Jr., Karen Orgorzalak, Lynn Sang Shostak, Linda Minster, Bruce King, Karen Bell, Phyllis First, Marshall Minster, Kenneth Kaufman, Mark Klein, Dick Levine, Barbara Choate, Carol Foreman, Scarlett Lehman, Brian James Newberg. Are there any other names?
Marilyn Berger and Vicki Aaronstein.
Our hearts join with those who are mourning the loss of loved ones at this season in years past. Lowell Acheron, Pinchas Barlas, Wilfred Garfinkel, Ruth Savell, Joseph Kingsley, Michael Camby, Louis Silberberg. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Please rise in body or spirit according to your custom, and if you so choose to say Kaddish for those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. Please turn to page 598. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon u'chaye d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'almei almaya. Yit barach v'yit shabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh. V'yit hadar v'yit haleh v'yit halal shemei dekudasha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehe shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated. To conclude our service, please join me in a song of peace with Shalom Aleichem on page 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Thank you to tonight's greeter, Jerry Rabinovitz, to our AV support, Eric, to our board rep, Kimberly, and to our ONEG host, CJ. And let's go meet up in the social hall. Thank you.
Why don't you take that? I'll take the candles.
Okay.
But I'm going to turn off the video first.
I'm wondering if we should add Sarah tomorrow. Or we have to wait till after the Shabbat.
She was supposed to, I think she was buried yesterday, so it should have been on here.